What's up, IT friends? How's it going? Happy Tuesday. I've accused you in the past that your MSP is a pizzeria, and that was a good analogy. I still like to explain how many MSPs are run very, very similar, even if minor differences exist. So, keeping with that theme of comparing your MSP to random nonsense, I want to talk a little bit today on why you need to start thinking about your help desk team as a wood chipper. I assume you all know what a wood chipper is, but for anybody who doesn't, machine with some sort of funnel, literally a funnel or a chute. You input branches, logs, pieces of wood, whatever. And 100% of the stuff that you stick into the funnel gets sent out as wood chips on the other side. And if you don't want something to be wood chips, you don't stick it in the funnel. And they're kind of dangerous if used improperly. So everybody knows what a wood chipper is. So where I'm going with this is that your help desk engine, so whether that's first call resolution, dispatch, whatever, live queue, whatever your setup is, your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, the people who process all your reactive tickets and likely all of your smaller move ad changes, your help desk, the bulk of your business as an MSP. You need to start thinking of your entire help desk team as a machine. And it's a machine that will return one output. In this case, in our analogy, it makes wood chips. And anything that goes in that funnel gets turned into pieces of chipped wood or chipped whatever went in the funnel. If you don't want something to end up as wood chips, don't stick it in the funnel. A lot of MSPs struggle with two challenges when they're trying to scale at really any size. Whenever you hit a maturity plateau and you're trying to scale, and that's pretty much that I don't have people on my help desk that have the right mix of skill sets to address where I'd need to be for my next scalability factor. For most of the people watching this, that means that I have the perception that I need more high-level people added to my team to be able to take on the newer, more sexy, better revenue clients. Or on the flip side, I constantly find that we've gotten to this point where my help desk doesn't make the decisions that I need them to make to keep the level of client that I want to go after happy. And there's a bunch of different ways we could kind of skin those two scenarios. But I think most of the times when you hit a maturity plateau from your help desk standpoint, it does boil down into one of those two things. And there are sort of ancillary bits. If we keep the tree analogy, there are branches that come off of that with staffing, capacity to staff, hiring, all these other problems. You're paying for these people, what you're going to resell their time for. And all of these branches really stem from this initial problem statement that I'm not exactly sure now who I need to hire to put on my help desk, but I know I can't really find them. And given the people I currently have, they're not doing what I really need them to do consistently. So what's ended up happening, interestingly enough, in our space is this problem got identified pretty early on in our industry. And it got solved from the opposite end, the opposite end of the wood chipper. We were looking at piles of all sorts of shredded stuff, not just wood chips, shredded probably hands, leaves, wood chips, styrofoam, kids' toys, I don't know, a pool noodle, whatever. Like, we're looking at a pile of shredded stuff and just saying, some of this stuff shouldn't be in this pile. And so we invented products like RMMs that allowed us to go in and start using automation to basically remove stuff from that pile. And you will find that there is a pretty well understood concept in the MSP space that, generally speaking, the more I have the opportunity to automate something, the better the chances I can be efficient at it, and the better the chances that my team will be able to better execute on whatever they need to execute on. And none of those things are untrue. The challenge is if you're starting with the output of the machine that is your help desk and trying to automate back, you have a fairly limited scope and really limited, ripple effect that will really cause, because it's still reactive. You're reacting to the output of that machine. And I know some of you are going to say you automate your proactive tasks. I don't mean that kind of reactive and proactive, because you automating your proactive tasks, it's still really you automating the wrong things are in the chipped materials pile, and you want to sort them into the right bins, which, as I said, that's excellent. Good for you. But that likely hasn't solved the ceiling that you're currently hitting at this maturity stage in your business. All right. So I think everybody kind of gets the gist of where I'm going here, but like, why the wood chipper? Well, the wood chipper is a really great example for this, because you really do need to think about your help desk. As you're going to mature, you need to find a way where your help desk is a machine that renders a single output. And that single output is going to be a completely wonderfully wrapped up with a beautiful bow on it, perfect ticket that has gone through, whatever process. You're a C-level guy, so your 5 chances to get the ticket correct steps, life cycle of a ticket. You've gone through all those steps. Each step has been handled perfectly. Back to our pizza analogy, each step has been handled exactly the same. And you've adopted that philosophy where you've built the machine itself. And for the most part, that's what's happening. It won't always happen, but you're close enough, right? Like, you built this machine. It makes wood chips, and it makes wood chips almost all the time. The life cycle of the ticket has followed. Yay me! Where growth, Dean? Why can't I scale? Why am I still having these problems we talked about earlier? Well, now you got to look at the funnel. So the thing about a wood chipper, and why I use it in this example, a wood chipper has an entrance funnel. The funnel is wider, right? It's wider than the opening for the teeth. And this allows you to stick kind of anything that will fit into the wood chipper into the wood chipper. And you figure, from a wood chipping standpoint, this makes a lot of sense. Like, not every branch or log is going to be exactly, the shape and size to fit in the scary teeth. I don't want the scary teeth literally exposed to the outside world. It could catch on my sleeve and suck me in the machine. But the thing is, anything you put in the funnel, the wood chipper is going to attempt to wood chip. And that's exactly what your help desk team should be doing. And as a manager, owner, salesperson, you need to remember that. You need to remember there is a funnel or a hopper, and anything that is allowed to get in that hopper is going to get processed exactly the same way every single time, whether you want it to or not. And if you ask the machine itself to make a decision, if it should or shouldn't be turning whatever was put into it into wood chips, it will not make the right decision. This is why, while we do have dangerous tools that if they sense something that's moist can turn off, we don't have wood chippers that have human flesh sensing that can turn off, because the machine itself is not capable of reliably making that decision. And in the same way, your help desk team, if you really want to grow, they need to be optimized. They need to be a function. They need to be optimized at turning a defined input into the same exact repeatable output every time that meets your SLAs, that you can go out and sell, and that your clients will say, fuck yeah, every time they do it. And the only way that works is if you stop expecting the machine itself to have to make all of these individual decisions about specific situations and scenarios. And you might be saying, I don't do that. And well, I'm telling you, as a professional operations person who's worked for a lot of you, I don't believe you. I don't believe you're not doing that, because it happens in really subtle ways. One of the most common ones, and this is not meant to be a video on setting up your PSA, but weirdly enough, a lot of this has to do setting up your PSA. One of the most common ones that I see that is, you are asking the wood chipper to decide after something has entered the chute if it should be chipped or not. Remember, you can't fucking do that. Everything that goes in the chute gets chipped. One of the ways I see this in a lot of MSPs is we expect technicians to keep track of what is and isn't billable. And I know that sounds like the most trivial thing, but like, I bet like 80% of the people watching this have some element of that in their ticketing system, where an employee, when they're working a ticket, has to remember to either pick a certain agreement or not pick an agreement, or remember to change a flag on whatever their time code is. Little things like that, Well, the thing is, people don't, people make mistakes, guys. That's why we're in business, right? Like, we support people, not computers don't break, people break. And your employees are no different. And when you get to a point where you need every employee on your help desk to understand the fire hose level technical nuances of every client, but also the business nuances of every client at your MSP, that's hard to scale and hire, right? Like, that's the struggle you're currently having. It's hard to find those people. That's a very specific type of brain, and that person has to work for you for a long time. And you will notice that that is not something you can go off the street and just plop in the seat and have instant success with, which is why you're having the scalability issue to begin with. It's not that you're not finding the right people. It's that you're asking the right people to do the wrong things. You're asking, you've built this Woodchipper, and you're asking it now to have conditional logic that makes decisions about what should or shouldn't be chipped after that stuff's already in the hopper. It's your job as the manager, the salesperson, the executive, whatever, to start figuring out and kind of getting in your head that anything that goes in that funnel gets turned into chips always. And if I didn't want it to be chips, that's my fault. It is not the Woodchipper's fault. It is not the help desk team's fault. If a client gets mad because something wasn't handled properly, because the help desk team 100% followed the output process, that's your fault for putting them in that position, not their fault for not making the decision you wanted them to make. And this is a fundamental challenge, and probably one of the biggest reasons, other than the fact that we all suck at selling, probably the second biggest reason why most MSPs never really scale past like that, like $1 to $1.5 million maturity point, because you need to have an awakening to this concept to really push your business to the next level. I did a talk at MSP GeekCon on operationalizing know how to focus on what you're good at. And that kind of covers the other side of the same question, which is, as a business owner, you need to limit what goes into that funnel to only the things the machine is best designed to turn into chips, because it is only going to chip things into small little bits. That is all it can do. It cannot wood chip some things, mulch a few other things, and then turn a bunch of other stuff into pasta. Like, it doesn't, it just wood chips only. So that's another element here as well. That one is probably less of a blocker to your initial ability to scale, because of the fact that the machine will turn most stuff into wood chips, and that is mostly what you want. So for most MSPs, that's less of an immediate need, but that's also a problem. And think about that. Like, if you've trained your help desk team to only follow a certain methodology for working every single ticket, and then you bring on a couple of break fix clients who don't follow that methodology, well, now I got to make a decision, and maybe the output from that wood chipper isn't really what I wanted. Maybe those break fix clients need, loam for their grass, not mulch, not bark chips, but the wood chipper only makes bark chips. So now they're going to get bark chips, and that's taking away from other people that do want bark chips. I know it's a goofy ass analogy, but it's just really important. As an executive, as an owner, as a manager, you need to think of your help desk like a machine that only produces one excellent, perfect output. You got to control what's going into it. The easiest solution I saw to start to change the way you think about this, especially if you're in that management leadership role, is in your ticketing system, have a single board, a triage board, a landing board. All incoming reactive tickets from any source go there first. Not to be worked on, they go there first. And if you want to stick with my wood chipper analogy, that is a tarp you have laid out on the grass in front of the wood chipper, where you are piling up everything that might go into the wood chipper. And then you adopt a relatively basic triage process, which I know saying this you all understand, but so many of you still don't actually do in practice, because triaging something, you do need to have a triage area. You know, you can't triage things. You can't triage, should this tree limb be wood chipped as it's entering the funnel of the wood chipper? That's not triage. You have to decide ahead of time if it belongs in the wood chipper. So having a triage board where all of your reactive tickets land first, and then you either have automation or a person. I strongly suggest it be a person so you know what you're doing. Automation isn't fucking magic, people. And if you don't already know the process and what you're doing, there is no point in automating it. And before you hit me with, oh, I know how to automate my tickets. Well, if you're watching this video and we're having this conversation, no, you don't. No, you don't. Don't, like, you're not helping anybody. But it's lying to the dentist about flossing. You're not helping anybody. So no, you probably don't know what to automate yet. And that's fine. You will. But go in, follow a triage process. There are so many examples across our industry. Nearly every coaching company has their own flavor. If you don't like any of those, just go grab the generic ITIL. We're on V4 now, ITIL method. Triage those tickets. Categorize them by type, subtype, and item. Try to make sure that at the triage process, enough of those input decisions are already solved for. The agreement, where it's being billed to, who it's being billed to, what type of service it is, what board it needs to go on, who needs to work it, all of that stuff that you're currently deciding once the branches are entering the funnel. You decide ahead of time, and then you say, okay, I have a smaller pile of branches now that are going in this wood chipper. And then, hell yeah, you built an amazing machine. It's going to turn those service tickets into a fantastic output. Keep at this. It takes a while. It's not going to be instant. You can't just wake up one morning and say, I've got a triage process. It could take you like 6 months, a year with practice, seriously. But you start getting through this, and what you're going to realize, two really important concepts. First thing you're going to realize is, wow, most of the reactive tickets I get are actually incredibly low level. They appeared to be high level before because it was chaos, because I wasn't sorting out on that tarp ahead of time what goes into the wood chipper. I was just pushing anything in and just letting the wood chipper figure it out. That was fucking chaos. There was shit flying everywhere. There's pieces of metal flying off. It was screaming at you. Sometimes blood was spraying out when someone's hand got caught. Suddenly all that chaos is just gone. And you realize that, like, hey, you know, I actually mostly just wood chip small branches. Like, it's actually pretty easy here. Like, most of what goes in there is actually very low level tickets. I don't actually need another T2 or another T3 person. I just need a regular normal person that is starting their career, you know, is relatively entry level. Well, that's way more affordable. I can go find 5 of those because those folks are super easy to find in any market. So you realize that. And then secondly, what you start to realize is you go back in and you'll realize from an output standpoint, all of the times in the past that you had dirty chip piles, you instead of just having, you know, I don't know, you're making pine chips, instead of just having a clean pile of pine chips, you had other stuff in there because there was so much chaos on the input, and you spent a lot of time and effort sorting through that chip pile. There was probably a lot of management overhead. There's probably a lot of AR overhead. There was probably a lot, well, finance, admin overhead, ticket hygiene, cleaning, all this shit. And when you had all of this garbage you were constantly sifting through, what's easier as a manager, building the world's most amazing sifter to clean through everything, or just finding the guy on your team that just had the magical ability to just sort out the pile quickly on their own? Turns out I don't really need that many high-level people to run my MSP if I control and clean my input before it goes into my help desk. Weird that a lot of the stuff I thought was projects or T3 or could only be solved by the guy. Every MSP has one of those, that, you know, the guy who's been there for a long time, the clients trust. Weird that, like, I actually, like, I want them, but I don't actually require them to do all the things I thought I did. This is this amazing liberating moment as a business owner where you now realize that the guy, the girl, whoever they are, like the human that you have on your team, they can go do other shit now that's worthy of their paycheck. Your managers or you don't have to spend all week sifting through and QCing tickets, not because your team got better at ticket quality, but because you curated the input, it got simpler and easier, so less mistakes were made. And the whole thing just ends up being a little bit cleaner. Not perfect, but cleaner. Rounding this out, as we get back to that initial idea that you're at a maturity level where you're trying to scale, what we have now solved for, we've given you a much cleaner input and output experience of the team you've already built. That means that it's a lot easier to hire much more lower waged, more entry-level people, because as it turns out, they don't have to have all of this high-level technical or business consciousness about the process to be able to get the result. And now you have more confidence that you will return the proper result consistently. And so what that does for you from a scalability factor, hiring is much easier and cheaper, but finding new clients is easier, because now you can much more succinctly communicate exactly what it is you're going to deliver them. And you don't have that nagging voice in the back of your head that is telling you the whole time, like, except when we don't, or what if we make a mistake, or what if we fail, or what if we get this wrong. That doubtful voice a lot of SMB owners have that causes you to say yes to bad revenue or to acquiesce to bad decisions because you're so fearful. I'm not saying you're ever going to not be fearful. You're a business owner. You're always going to be a little bit fearful. But it limits that a little bit. It gives you some confidence. Now you go in there and you're like, listen, as long as we put the right stuff in that wood chipper, as long as we put the right kind of pine branches in, we get beautiful pine bark mulch every time. Every time. And the only time we don't get beautiful pine bark mulch is either if the machine itself literally has a mechanical issue, or if somebody throws rocks in the chute. I can prevent people from throwing rocks in the chute, and we do basic maintenance and staffing to limit the scope of the machine itself having a mechanical failure. So I feel pretty confident telling a client, hey, you want pine bark mulch? No problem. Here's the price. It's just this level of ease, and you'll find as you get to each maturity step, you go through this exact same process again. You step back, you realize I built a new machine, or I built a series. Maybe you have multiple wood chippers and they each do one thing, whatever. But you've built now a more sophisticated chipper or multiple chippers. I'm at the same problem again. You take a step back, you reassess, control the input going into that funnel, because those machines, no matter how big you are, only produce one output. You get a clean output again. Once again, helps you have clarity on who you're going to sell to, who you're going to hire. And that's how we move up that scalability ladder. Got this, people. Have a great Tuesday. Don't stick your hand in the wood chipper.